Oh, hello, yes. Well, good grief, I know what you're thinking. Kral collar. It's a bit out there, isn't it? No, it's just a high collar. It's the way they come. Rather nice, though. Anyway, speaking of such oddities, or not, as the case may be, I thought today we'd have a think about what's acceptable and what isn't, let's face it. The parameters of which, as we all know, do change over time, despite the fact that some people seem to believe that they are fixed, because somehow morality is a very, very movable feast, isn't it? Yes. Anyway, the news yesterday was that, of course, we have a new leader and deputy leader of the Green Party. We've got Zach and Mothram, who, well, I don't know. The standardised response to Zach becoming leader was the usual kind of crud that you might expect. We got this actual headline in the Telegraph. Yes, this is the actual headline. Because, of course, it's just laughably funny that somebody, should wear a very, very high collar, like, I don't know, Harry Hill. It's just funny intrinsically, isn't it? Except it does look quite nice, and in the same way that perhaps Zach being the leader is quite, well, nice as well, I suppose. Yes, a bit of left populism. He does it extremely well, and after all, why should we take any notice of them? Because we should point and laugh at them because they only have a small number of MPs. Just like reform. Yes, imagine that, a bit of a resurgent kind of populist notion of things. Just like reform, but in this case, of course, we have to laugh at them. We can't treat them very, very, very seriously like we do the reform people. And, it's the same with Mothran, who, of course, is, well, as various of our brown-skinned grifters were pointing out, is the wrong sort of brown-skinned person. I mean, he's likely to go around stirring up racial hatred, isn't he? Compared to, well, other people that, go around, stirring up racial hatred. I'll need to think my way through that. But there do seem to be a lot of these types of things around. Yesterday, I did something which I almost never do, which is a listen to Times Radio, which is about as establishment as you can get. I mean, it's not quite Rory Stewart chatting to one of his mates, and it's not quite George Osborne chatting to one of his mates, but by God, it's close there. And there's this one, Why Britain's Left is Radicalising, which would purport from, the Times, to give you an in-depth view of exactly what's going on. But I don't know, I personally, you can link down below, you can listen through it for yourself, find it utterly soporific that they can get on people that are paid, I don't know, an enormously large amount of money, compared to me even, who just managed to not say anything whatsoever, that you couldn't basically think up yourself with no real knowledge of what they're talking about at all. Because the whole thing about Zach is, he's sort of come from the outside and we don't really know much about him. And the whole thing about Jeremy Corbyn is, nobody really liked him and he's an anti-Semite. I'm talking between the lines here, but effectively that was it. And I was just thinking, well, yeah, great. I don't really see why I should listen to this tosh. It offers me nothing whatsoever. But most of our mainstream media is trapped within this basic sense of things that are allowable, in which case it's Nigel Farage and the rest of them. And by the rest of them, I mean very, very, very lovely human beings like Graham Linehan, who unfortunately yesterday was arrested in an airport, which of course has got people up in arms because, I mean, it's not like there's anything going wrong with going around stirring up hatred against minorities, is it? Just the right minorities, though, obviously, within the parameters of what's allowed. Yeah, we had this in the Telegraph as well, which caught my eye. James Kirkup, the left must rediscover its love of Englishness if it is to recover. Now, I consider myself to be a lot more English than most of the people that write this tosh, certainly a lot more English than an awful lot of commentators that I see, and yet I am somehow portrayed in these types of things as being way out there. I think, if we did have an actual Labour Party with an actual leader who was actually left-wing, we would actually begin to tackle some of these issues that are, picked up in this article about why aren't the left a bit more patriotic. We are, mate. We're extremely patriotic. We just don't buy into the idea that we should hate other people as a substitute for it, yeah? That's the thing, right? Okay, I love the country I live in, have no intention of leaving, but I want it to be better for everybody, not just a handful of people. But again, that's a notion which seems to be beyond the pale in terms of these people that are paid, once again, a great deal of money to have this level of insight. And I point you in particular to this one recently from the Daily Telegraph's podcast, because of course the Daily Telegraph has to have a podcast because everybody else has a podcast. So we end up with some of the most soporific individuals like Camilla Toomey on it talking about nothing. And this one, of course, is about George Finch, the Teenage Reform Council leader taking on the Blob. Yes. Now, I don't know about you, but I would personally think that anyone that was going to interview this kiddie, because let's face it, he's only just legally an adult. His prior job to being leader of the council was writing things for reform. They gave him the job title of Assistant Associate Mega Lord of the High Editing or something equally spurious. Yeah? No experience whatsoever. When he was tackled previously about, whether his age should be a bar, he basically said that no one would have a problem with a 17-year-old being a 70-year-old being a member of the leader of the council. To which, of course, the obvious answer is, yeah, because they're 70, mate. That's why. Okay? No matter which way you present it, a 19-year-old cannot have the aptitude for running a very large organisation for reasons that should be blindingly obvious to the Daily T and the rest of the people that are out there. And it's usually up to the local press to actually sort of ask awkward questions. But meanwhile, we just end up with, well, okay, somebody who's going to take on the Blob. Well, what does that mean exactly? Because, Nigel has suggested that he needs an advisor on a great deal of money, once again, to, well, advise him. So he can't be that brilliant anyway. Why don't we just employ the advisor? Yeah, we can get rid of the whole voting thing. After all, it patently hasn't worked in this case because people didn't vote for Kiddo to be, leader of the council. But again, this is something apparently that only I, in my leftist extreme notion, actually has the gumption to ask these questions. Why aren't the people like Camilla Toomey and Times Radio and basically anyone that writes for the Daily Telegraph doing the same thing? Why is it that we end up in a country where you're allowed to be a very, 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 very dodgy character, often a very nasty one, like, Graham Linehan, and that's perfectly acceptable because it's within the parameters. But if you're a respected local councillor who, let's face it, got a good name for himself by trying to stop rioting, remember that, Hare Hills, then you're beyond the pale because you're automatically a bad man. It would be nice if we could, I know I keep saying it, but have a grown-up conversation. But meanwhile, with these, bed blockers in the media, we're not going to have it, are we? Still, never mind. I imagine that George will have a glorious, glorious future in front of him. He can put something else in his CV, can't he? Like, something else. Yeah? The most recent Labour appointee is yet another person who's straight out of university with PPE, and people are calling that one out. Well, I give you George, okay? Let's make it a nice equal level playing field, shall we? And if you're going to complain about free speech, you can do, as Sophie Corcoran was doing so, but she was arguing about the way that people haven't been arrested for being abusive to her. Well, okay, but it can't be both, Sophie, okay? Either you have free speech and it's pretty much absolutist, or you can have laws in place. But for God's sake, whatever you do, don't hide behind the notion of, a kind of identity politics in order to defend your own fairly dodgy positions. Yes. Still, George, never mind, hasn't got a degree, didn't want to do the course because it would be full of left-wingers. Oh well, never mind, a bit like real life, eh? Still, enjoy, do have a lovely day, and whatever you do think for yourself, even though it's a radically dangerous thing to do. Ooh.